All righty. Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Oh, I'm realizing I got to do this for my own little thingamabob here, but stay tuned. We are rocking and rolling. Welcome to the Energy Report here, guys. Sorry, I jumped right on. You see what I'm doing now? I'm getting a little prepared, kind of figuring out maybe 7:30 is a better time than 7 o'clock. It's all good. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, giving you guys shout outs. Michelle, good to see you. Deb, good to see you. It's Brainy, good to see you. Kay Urick, Deb, awesome. Haiti, love seeing you guys jump on here. Deb, thanks so much. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Wow, too. You're like, you can't believe that I'm already on. I see you. I do see you. Well, looks like we got our channel of choice here. So we're in good shape here. Hello, Carolyn. Hey, Shar, how are you? Silver and gold, silver and gold. Hey, Jeremy, how are you? Yes, and Jeremy, let me tell you something. I have to tell you, I was recently reminded of John Lewis's, get into good trouble. And those of you that know John Lewis know that, he was an activist for a good long time. He was state representative for a good long time. I don't know his full history. I know his ties to Martin Luther King. I know that he walked to Memphis. I know that he is, a very influential character in a time of disruption. And good trouble by him was the definition of the protests. And that was the genuine feel this weekend. Of course, I didn't, how do I want to say this? I did freezer. Um, I did not plan my schedule around this. Oh, hold on one sec. Guys, I'm going to be back in two shakes here. Hold on one sec. I see what's going on here and I have to manage this. So hold on one second. Going to be right back. Right back. I'm going to drop for 2 seconds. I'm going to be right back on. And I told you I would be right back on. And by the way, hopefully this is going to be a little bit easier now. I'm on the stream channel that I should be on. I'm learning so much about this stuff. I actually sat and like binge watched some YouTube studio stuff. So, there's that as well. Hopefully I won't skip and, whatever. Um, it's John Lewis as a human, um, just truly connected with the sentiment of I'm not happy with this. And one of the struggles that I've seen in this world right now is, it's kind of like we're in the nice guy trap. That's what this is. Let me explain. We're in the nice guy trap. The nice guy trap is when you say, I don't like that you did that, and then they say, well, that's my freedom of speech. That's my Second Amendment right. Those are my rights. I can say or do or protest whatever it is that I want. I can say that I have an opinion about immigrants. I can say that I think, Donald Trump is the greatest civic servant the world has ever known. Like they have every right to say that. The conflict comes in when you ask them for facts. The conflict comes in when you ask them to kind of substantiate it and say, just to be clear, a convicted felon rapist is the person that you're selecting and saying that they're a good person. And then they go, Joe Biden was whatever. That's the trap. It's the good guy trap. Because then you go into the next thing and say, well, this has nothing to do with Joe Biden. I didn't say anything about it. Yeah, but your choice was, oh, so you're going to shame my choice by doing this. In light work, those people that do this work feel that if they blow out the candle of another, it makes theirs shine brighter. It is a common theory. It is one of the level up stages that you go through. And by the way, everybody that does spiritual work recognizes at one time or another you blew somebody else's candle out. It's part of the thing. I'm sorry, but it happens. Own it. Correct it. Be better. What we're currently facing is that we're trying to say we're in this sinking cesspool of people's emotional, intelligence. And listen, this has been very much about emotional intelligence. It's been about intelligence as a whole. But it's also about the justification of not doing the right thing over and over again. This is not just one party. Both parties have sunk this country. Don't think that it's all Donald Trump is pulling the plug on the final parts of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not becoming a fan of what has been going on at all. And I really use caution whenever I lift up another person or another whatever. Instead, I'm going to tell you that you have to take the good, take the bad, take them all, and there you have. What we're beginning to recognize is that everyone is compromised. Everyone. Donald Trump is so compromised to Russia in 1985, 88, 89, that he will never be an actively good president. He will never not swing towards Russia because Russia owns him. Russia owns him. If he can distract just long enough that he could grift beyond any of those debts being paid or whatever else, Donald Trump is a horrible human being. He just is. And by the way, if he is your political choice, Godspeed. You make political choices based on whether or not you think they can do the job, whether or not they're a good person or not. But the vast majority of people that understand energy go right to the idea as to whether or not they are a good person. That stuff matters because we're human. And by the way, when somebody does something wrong or somebody's challenged with something or they don't fulfill a duty or an obligation, it's kind of tough to look past it unless they are a good. Wow, that was awful. That's a terrible look right there. Oh my gosh. But you really begin to understand how people make their decisions. And why would people look at somebody so brazenly broken and say, that's our guy? He literally called the dog whistle for an insurrection on January 6th. Literally. Like there's no, you can say, well, he didn't say it like this and he didn't say it like that. Guess what? If you have to rely on minute details of the what is, you're fucking guilty. Sorry. That's just the way it is, everybody. Right? You can't say, well, technically he didn't say storm the Capitol. No, he said it'll be wild. We have to take back our country by all means. He said all the dog whistles. There has been a lot of talk and conversation. And by the way, I understand you want to quit. Please don't. And hear me out. This is a time for us to actually have resolve because someone that would say something like, let's get into good trouble, will literally pull themselves up by their bootstraps and say to themselves, hey, listen, I am not going to fall down. I am not going to let you be the reason why I fail. If I fail, I want it to be because it's not a good idea, right? I want it to be something where I could have done something different to be able to get my point across. If it's something that I need to learn, I'm all for it. I really am. I'm okay with failure. I am very much okay with failure. And the reason why I say that is, and we lose the opportunity to learn when we think that we're too big for the lesson at hand. We do it, we do it individually, but Donald Trump does it on the daily. At no time does he literally say, hey, you know what? I actually messed up. Oops. And we're going to talk about a few of their monumental screw-ups that need to be cleaned up already. And I'm not just talking about tariffs. But what I am talking about is having the ability to kind of look at things for the reasons that we need to understand that people need to recognize that mistakes are going to happen, right? Mistakes are going to be actually part of the lexicon of who we are. And guess what? When somebody's imperfect, doesn't that kind of make them the perfect candidate? There's something very inhuman about how Donald Trump has been acting. I mean, from everything from his woefully underqualified cabinet members. And by the way, there has never been a worse situation than to have, I don't know, let's just say a text chain with bombing coordinates on it. And I know it's not exactly what happened and blah blah blah. Oops, incredibly good looking, but let's make sure that we've uploaded this the right way. But we really have a substantial challenge here. And that substantial challenge is that we're dealing with people that aren't actually going to pay attention to the argument. They think that winning is at all cost. Well, part of that is it's not good energy when all you want to do is win. We are not a truth-seeking species. That's the problem, everybody. We are a get it right, cover your ass social creature. We want the social success. We want to brag. We don't want to be held accountable, and we certainly don't want to wear the scarlet letter. However, what you begin to recognize is that people are becoming what our president is distinguishing himself as, and that is someone that is a denier. Someone that, whether it's denying elections or denying rights or denying citizenships, he finds power in the word no. So what happens when we use the word no? Well, then we get ourselves into a little bit of trouble. By the way, if you go to my website right now, and I'm going to go ahead and do you a favor and type in tbrandonruss.com, you will discover I am doing a one-day special. There are 2 more spots left. If you have never had your natal chart done to help understand your personality traits, how you communicate, how you love, and how you'll heal, this is a great reading for you. It's only $155. Listen, guys, I'm dropping it at $95. I don't know what to tell you. I know the economy goes up, it goes down. We're going to talk a little bit about the stock market here in a second, but understand that we're being guided with someone that has no context, that immediately thinks that if who they are is anti everything that was before, every Democrat, every Joe Biden, every Obama, every Clinton, every fallen soldier, every person that's handicapped, every person of color, every person that is going through a gender identity crisis. And by the way, I think we really have to kind of grab the narrative on the transgender thing. I really do. This is in all due respect to anyone that is transgender. I know people personally that are transgender. I know people that are transitioning as I speak right now. But I want to make it. I want to say this without minimizing them as humans. We are literally in an uproar of 0.0000012% of our entire population. We have made accommodations for them that have far-reaching been further than what we've needed, but I understand the sentiment. The people that are upset about those accommodations, well, then they think that they're some sort of smart ass and they shoot up Bud Light commercials in bottles. We recognize that they need to be included. That's what being inclusive is. But we made such a big deal about it because it became a firestorm between you, me, and the fence post. Energetically, I'm looking around going, how do we lose a fight over this? Like, it's kind of a non grata. Now, you can make the argument about men being in women's sports. I get it. I understand it. And quite frankly, if they identify as part of it is the qualifying factor, I don't agree with that. Get the surgery. Go through the surgery. If the identification comes out of that, and then you go through that and you get an addictomy, that's what it's called, or a antidictomy, or whatever it is they call it. Go through that surgery and then go ahead and train. I think we should base people not only on the content of their character, but the current plumbing. And I'm not belittling someone that is born into a body that feels like they're not there. If you are in that situation, your priority is not competing in sports. It's not competing. It could be swimming. It could be running. It could be all those things. And I'm sorry if I'm losing some of the kind of otherwise, left feel that I've always had. But we have to come to a logical conclusion to start to format this because we lost the boat on it. Like it became a target, and you're kind of like, yeah, that kind of got out of control. But let's be clear. That doesn't mean we don't love them. It doesn't mean that we think that they should be exterminated. It doesn't mean that we think that they should be outcasts any more than what they already feel like they are. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying we can kind of say, hey, we love you. We're going to treat you equally, but that doesn't mean you get to compete because you have a penis still. That is not a girl sport. Okay? Can we just use logic? There, soapbox done. But can I also point out that whatever these things that Trump loves to basically segregate, whether it's the deportation shit, which we're going to talk about here in a second because we're coming up on a deadline, whether or not it's the idea that we have to, cut budget, whether or not we have to, whatever. I hold my head thinking all of the damage that's happening. And this isn't going to be a quick fix. The bad news is that, somebody's not going to snap their fingers and say he's out of office and we can just reverse everything because there's real damage happening, right? And there's two modes. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and I firmly believe that Donald Trump is the demo team. That's it. He's the demo team. By the way, not the smart ones, not the visionaries, just to be like, I understand you need some shit broken. I got a crew here. Yeah, we got a couple of felonies. We got a couple of, some of us didn't graduate from know nothing. And listen, we can rip that kitchen out. As a matter of fact, when we go in, I'm sorry, lady, I know you hired us to rip out the kitchen, but I went ahead and ripped out the entire inside of the house. I went ahead and destroyed everything, so you can go ahead and build it again. He acts like a Jersey bohunk. He's not going to be in power forever, everybody. So let's begin to grab solace. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't do more damage. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't, take a swing at the economics or Canada and Greenland's sovereignty. Doesn't mean that he doesn't tank Marxists enough to kind of say like, oh no, we're in charge here. We're going to talk about the tariffs here in a second. But understand that a lot of what we're actually dealing with isn't sustainable. I want you to recognize that the energy of who this man is completely unsustainable. He is unsustainable in virtually every relationship he has ever had. His marriages, his business dealings, his TV shows, his whatevers. And at the end of the day, his greatest moment in all of this has been being a TV star saying you're fired. His comfort zone is to ruin people. His comfort zone isn't to build anything. But sometimes you need the demo team to make things clear, right? He is 100% a Russian asset. So is Tulsi Gabbard. Meanwhile, you have J.D. Vance, who is an asset for the tech bros. You have Kash Patel, who is a flat-out puppet. By the way, I never thought I'd say this, but fuck Wayne Gretzky. Sorry, it's my outside voice. Ovechkin got it. I'm sorry. But to see Debbie +1, he's a Russian ass. By the way, he doesn't like to have at the end of it because it makes it sound like he's not really masculine. Yeah, bohunk actually came from 16 Candles, those of you that are fans. Yeah, the amount of money that the United States is paying for things that they claim they're getting ahead of. There was a major earthquake in Malaysia. Major earthquake, 7.7. Buildings, families, infrastructure ruined. We have no tangible way to provide aid to them. But China does. Let that sink in, everybody. One of the things that the United States is very good at, and even though we were paying money into things and we were handing people, we were throwing our money away, we were also helping them understand that when push came to shove, they were going to trade with us as they rebuilt. They were going to pull it together. Our foreign trade policy was actually built on what we did to Japan. I don't know if you remember this in that little history lesson. We dropped two atomic bombs on them, basically ruined the lower half of the entire island. But as we helped them rebuild, the deal was, we're going to help you rebuild, but we are going to become your primary trade partner. We are going to become the people that you need in your life. But all that's gone because he has no context. All he does is look at it and say, why he blatantly misunderstands things and says, oops, sorry, like the petulant child that he is. I will never let up on the gas about Donald Trump, even when he mistakenly does something correct or when he mistakenly does something, well, okay, here you go. Let's dive into the energy report here, if you will. Shall we? All right, we're going to add this to the stage. Ooh, look at that. Oh, wow. Looks like he went through a car wash and cleaned up a little bit. Am I right or am I right? There we go. There are two left on those special, and I see somebody in there. Let's talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, which, by the way, the deadline is tonight for him to be returned to the United States by judge order. The judge, who I absolutely had a whole thing set up on, which is what made my thing go a little bit crazy. But basically, a judge in 2019 basically said, you have asylum and permanent alien status, basically. And in 2019, there were specific instructions to never return him to El Salvador and to never actually let him out of the country. If he needed political asylum, they were basically like, hey, listen, you have 48 states you can go to, and you can't go over the water, like basically in a nutshell. They were like, we don't want you to, if we're going to put ourselves out there for this, here it is. And by the way, he had no criminal record, either in El Salvador. He fled when he was 16, I believe. And then he had, he checked in every year with ICE. He did everything that he was supposed to be, and if they had done an ounce of due diligence, they would have discovered that a judge put a sanction on him being in the country to never deport him ever, basically in a nutshell. Well, the Trump administration, ICE and Kristi Noem, have absolutely no regard for anybody whatsoever. They have it in their mind that they need to kind of round people up and send people off. By the way, Avelo is the current contractor, the airline. If you want to protest with your dollars, do not fly Avelo because they have signed a contract with the United States government to deport people because they cannot, by law, they cannot use military craft to move people, which, by the way, when the fuck would they ever go like, oh, that's illegal, we shouldn't do that? No, they don't give a shit. But let me be clear, Avelo actually has that contract because they don't really, get as many flights as they need to, and they get a lot of, I think they get a lot of, it could be United or American Airlines, one or the other, but they'll get a lot of residual from them, right? So if they had done 1 ounce of due diligence or due process, they would have realized, even if he stayed detained for, I don't know, being able to see him in court here, because he still has that right. Well, not if he's an immigrant, not if he's here illegally. No, you didn't check to see if he was here illegally. He's also married to a U.S. citizen, which, by the way, makes him a naturalized citizen. We won't get into that right now. He also has 2 children. One of them is autistic and would only respond to him. So there's that. So we were meant, or the United States basically doesn't have any regard to this. And by the way, I am sure that there are many more people that are being deported that actually have permanent status. I mean, there has been countless, ties to this. You have seen them kind of be like, oh, well, they were a citizen next year, so much, and so forth and so on. And listen, at the end of the day, they don't care. They want to create a narrative. They want to stick to a narrative. They want to look strong. Strong people don't admit that they ever make a mistake. They don't ever admit weakness. And that was the problem with Donald Trump. I mean, it's kind of like there's primary, there's secondary, there's tertiary. The primary is he's a convicted blah, blah, blah. He's not a good leader. He's blown up businesses. He just, as a person, from a qualified leadership standpoint, he doesn't have it. Secondary, I'd actually put the businesses in there. Secondary, I would put him, in there as someone that has never really, when has he ever run a company well? Like, just tell me one. And then last but not least, this is about him coming in and just doing whatever it is that he wants because he thinks that a large portion of America wants that. And listen, I don't think anybody would disagree to say, like, we should really clean up our federal government. Like, nobody would argue with that statement. Yeah, we should start by firing as many people as possible without due diligence or anything else. Well, one thing that's actually been thrown around, and I actually meant to make a slide on this. Oh, there's our friend. I think I need a picture of this. Bill Clinton actually reduced the federal workforce significantly by about as many people as Donald Trump has done since he's been in office in his second term. And someone was like really boasting that, Donald Trump is doing the exact same thing that Bill Clinton was doing, and you're just a hypocrite. And then I go, time out. I am not a Bill Clinton fan. I don't actually... I'm not even sure I'm a Kennedy fan anymore. I'm just not. And I think Lincoln was a bit of an asshole. Like, I'm beginning to pick all of these people apart. John, take a seat for a minute. No, not in the back of the bus, wherever you want. But Bill Clinton basically came in and said, we have to do this. Like, we haven't done what most businesses do, which is audit the processes that are in place to make sure that we don't have government waste going on, that we have an efficiency level. There's those words. And that we actually kind of move towards like a bottom line kind of peel off. Is this going to really kind of save it? I mean, we're going to talk about it saving, $120 million a year, which is significant, but it is still a drop in the bucket to everything. Bill Clinton put into place, he put in a hierarchy of process. He put Al Gore in charge of it. And then by proxy, put in and hired one of the top-notch public administrative management people ever to go through with a process of understanding each person in their seat was evaluated to understand both department and continuity. So then if they needed to ship out parts that needed to be done, it would be reassigned. It would be done. In other words, it wasn't done willy-nilly. They had a review process. There were some that were kept. There were some that were eliminated, flat out eliminated. Like, nope, this doesn't work. 90%, almost, I think it's 80, 89. I round up, it's fine. That were of the spots that were attrition. And by the way, those of you that don't understand human resources lingo, attrition is when somebody comes in and they say, I'm going to give you my notice. I'm going to retire. I'm going to leave early. There were a few offers. There were definitely some offers in that were kind of like a, hey, if I come to you and you're at you're 63 years old and I give you kind of a severance and you're like, but you're going to have 2 years off early, are you going to take it? I don't know, maybe, probably, likely. We could fire you, but we're trying to do the right thing here. Back when the government actually tried to do the right thing, they might not have been all that great at it, but they at least tried. If you are comparing a process with qualified people with a review process and then an accountability for all of the duties that were being met to this current administration's layoffs, you're out of your fucking mind. On file, whether or not you actually have, you have like duties that are important. Whether or not you actually, how the work is going to get done afterwards. There is absolutely nothing about this. And then put a guy in there who you are absolutely going to use as a sacrificial lamb. This is a wonderful check. What would you like to do in the government? What job would you like to have, Elon? You know what? I've been thinking about a super special double secret probation position. Oh, yeah. You're going to get to go to rallies. You're going to be able to heil everybody. You're going to be able to, you can do whatever. You want to sack tickle somebody right there on stage, you can go ahead and do it. Bring your kid to work, whatever. You're not the president. Love that. But let's be brutally honest about this. Absolutely none of this has anything to do with efficiency. You mean to tell me that Elon Musk has efficiently run X into another stratosphere of, continuity and success? By the way, I'm going to call my shot here. Elon Musk is going to leave office, whatever the fuck that means. Excuse my French. I'm getting mad now. And he is going to turn around and purchase Truth Social for a ridiculous sum of money. And that was their filter. Elon is going to get a series of contracts, a bunch of no-show jobs down at the Esplanade, for those of you that follow it, right? There is, without a doubt, a Jersey team field. And let's understand it. Let's use the Soprano lingo here for a second. I don't think my group here really is a Soprano fan, but when I say some of these things, if you follow the stories, you would get it. Donald Trump's administration is nothing better than a glorified crew, which was exactly what the Sopranos were criticized as. They weren't really a family. They were a glorified crew, right? Which meant that they weren't as revered as the New York crews. They weren't as revered as what went down in Vegas or Atlantic City even, or certainly in Italy, right? Never admit the Cosa Nostra. Anyways, I digress. So, talking about John Lewis here for a second, what made him so good? Thousands of protests, 45 arrests, 33 years in Congress. What a middle finger to those that wanted to put him down. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, John Lewis did a little duck and cover, did a little, duck and weave here. He also got tagged a few times for things that he felt that he needed to be taken down for, so to speak, and arrested. And by the way, civil disobedience is kind of cool on the resume, just to let you know. I'm looking to get a couple of tags there myself later on this year. Make sure you have some rent money, everybody. But let's also talk about the number of protests that went on April 5th. This was a hands-off protest. And what the hands-off protest really displayed was hands off our Social Security, hands off our medical, hands off our women, hands off all of these programs that help other people, all of these social reform programs that help everything from displaced immigrants to youth, to women's shelters, to prison reform, all of that stuff. This is a great big stand-up. Look at the sheer number of this. By the way, I also want to point out the source on this was the EA Daily. That is where I got that. I also want to kind of go back here. This is out there on the internet, not quite sure. But I want to let you know that I sourced this from theindependent.com and AP News. I think it's going to be very important to show your work. And by the way, as a medium, I can't show my work when I'm doing a reading. They hand it to me. I go here. I can't go back. I'm not going through your garbage. I'm not going through your lists, right? But I am going to sit here and tell you that I think it's going to become very important that we just don't pull shit out of our ass anymore. And by the way, once upon a time, I might have been a little fast and loose. I might have been a little bit crazy, right? I talk astrology. To me, Mars is kind of the planet of action. It could mean war. It could be getting out of bed on time, right? I can't show my work on that, really, but I'm pretty consistent with it. When it comes to facts that are actually changing the face of our country and our world, I think we should go to some source document. I mean, after all, that's what I'm doing when I'm reading. I am going to source document. But it's a little bit harder to say, well, the Akashic Records. Anyways, back to the program, because tariffs. which, by the way, he has spelt tariffs incorrectly no less than 13 times since he's been elected. Let that sink in. You know, right off of the bat, we have China. Is there ever been anybody so immature to be China? Because it rhymes with, he's fucking 12. The European Union, Vietnam, Taiwan, who, by the way, has already announced that they are going to not retaliate. They think that it's a fair marker. Do you want to know why, everybody? Because this tariff up here, by the way, Taiwan, 32%, right? You think, wow, that's pretty, okay, all right. That also doesn't include microchips because they know they're going to need that. And by the way, the CHIP Act secured the previous tariffs, which is why the United States was at 64 and excluded the chips, the microchips, the things that are in everything from your car to your phone to everything else. Huh? So listen, if you got what I want, then we can negotiate with you. Am I right, Denmark? Ta-da! Oh, and by the way, some of these other countries that are, and by the way, just a horrible look. You've got Indonesia here that is recovering from the largest earthquake that they've had since the Christmas Day tsunami. Can we kind of take a deep breath on this and not rail everybody? And by the way, the validity of these, I mean, here's the thing with Donald Trump, and this is his favorite thing to do. Are you ready? He doesn't give you context. He never gives context, right? And although you talk about China, and just stay on the Taiwan thing here, he fails to mention that because if he admits that this does not include semiconductor chips, then he would have to say, because the Biden administration already worked it out and it's good for the country. He just doesn't say anything and rides the grift like a son of a bitch that he is. And for him to turn around and say, oh, I know them, they're a good guy, they're a great guy, they're a good person. That's not a rousing endorsement. That's just fucking word garble. Hey, Joe Biden and their administration did some amazing things to overcome this, which is why we were having one of the best economies we had ever had in the transfer of power from one president to another. It's insane. It is insane. Pushing him back up here. First of all, that's a really good looking ear. I have a friend of mine who's been shot. He it grazed his arm, and it was primarily soft tissue, and he still has a divot there. This is one of the reasons why I will continue to say that his assassination attempt was 100% bullshit. So here we are. His guard is finally let down. I just want to point out there isn't even a scratch on his ear. There isn't even a cartilage displacement on his ear. There is not even a wound on his ear, which is why we need to get into good trouble. Because what did he do while the stock market tanked? He went and he played golf. And by the way, he looks like a ghost here because he's wearing a white shirt and he can't put the makeup on because then he'll look like he dove headlong into a Cheetos box, right? He decided he was going to be above everything else and just go ahead and do this. His average his golfing time since he has been in office is 1 out of 3 days. 1 out of every 3 days he is on a golf course. And listen, I don't disparage people in their hobbies, but if you want to be retired and go play golf all day long, kick the ball out and cheat on your scorecard, whatever. To each their own. Nope, there's the end of it. But I want to point out that while Rome was burning, while the stock market was tanking, he was kind of sitting back and going, yeah, and? It tells me he has a plan. That also tells me that they knew exactly what was going to go on. And listen, I sincerely think that we need all of our politicians in a source of discovery to not be independent, to be able to invest in the stock market because you have insider trading information. You have access to public policy, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You've had access for decades, Nancy Pelosi. You know, it cuts both ways, guys. This is no longer about Democrats versus Republicans. We have to get that crap out of our head. This is about freedom and democracy versus tyranny and oppression. It's no longer about this. And by the way, Donald Trump is grifting off of all of the other bad politicians, Democrat or Republican, to get into office by saying, hey, look at me, I'll save you. The reality is that he's a hate monger. He doesn't like you. He doesn't like anybody about you. He does not care. He doesn't care. He hires incredibly woefully underqualified people, and he makes it abundantly clear that he does not care. What good energy is that? Well, truth be told, it isn't any. So what do we do from here? Well, we get ourselves into good trouble. I'm going to go ahead and bring John back up here again, because I want to really kind of captivate him as a human. We are faced with a time that is putting us in our place. And I want to tell you that, Doge has recently said, I want you on Friday to send us an email of 3 things that you've done well this week, or the 5 things, or whatever horseshit it is. So I want to be able to say, here are my 5 things. I completed a poem that I think will speak volumes once it's published. Number 2, I spend time with all 3 of my kids. Sometimes together and in some cases individually. And I help them move along, help them understand that they need to be the best person that they can be. And I also set very clearly that we don't even joke around about fascism. We don't talk about Germany 1939. We don't talk about people with little mustaches. And we certainly don't think that it's funny that somebody might be oppressed. Had to spend time with them to make sure that conversation happened. The other thing that I did is I delivered a reading that, I do this for a living, and I realize that the journey that I'm on is super important. And I have success with readings on the regular, but this one hit home because this was a person that needed to hear what they needed to hear in the moment that they heard it. Like literally, as you can hear those dominoes fall as I say them. I found value in what I do, number 3, because I connected the dots with them. Number 4, I'm beginning to speak to some people that will really change the face of where this country will go. Good trouble is a philosophy that will help you not only be able to protest things, but also stand up for yourself. We have the responsibility as humans, forget about as a country. The country doesn't really exist the way it exists anymore, so your sovereignty of self matters. Being able to stand up for someone that needed that. We have the responsibility in whatever position we're in, whether we're standing on, the shoulders of our ancestors, or whether we are understanding that the abundance of whatever socioeconomic advantage you had, now is not the time to remind them to go wash your car for them. No, this is a time for us to stand up and really start to treat people as equals. I am beginning to position myself to be able to do that on a grander scale. And last but not least, I met a man who didn't have the mental capacity to understand how his spirit works. But he had the mental capacity to embrace everything that spirit pushed him towards or helped him along with. Maybe we should start writing the 5 things that we change the world every Friday or Tuesday or Monday or whatever. Pick a day, share that. This man, as you would hear in Forrest Gump to say, your forest is right about here. But he was the kindest, sweetest, gentlest man. And he was enthralled. He was enthusiastic, but he didn't get it. And it's okay. But he sat in it. And he was moved by it. He did return validation, but most importantly, he experienced joy because he wasn't hindered by the expectation of, I'm getting the best reading ever. We are blessed and cursed with beautiful moments every day. Don't let this asshat take an ounce of energy from you, because that's good trouble. The amount of people that protested that day, they're saying that, and who cares about numbers? Who cares about crowd size, Donald? Let's talk about the spirit of just standing up. I wasn't in any of those crowds, but I was with them. I wasn't able to attend a single protest or demonstration, but I felt them. We have to start expending our energy in a way that's for the good. Good trouble. And if that grates the people that want to hate, that want to take away, that want to blow out other people's candle so that then they can maybe burn brighter for a half a second, then that's the kind of good trouble we need to get in. It doesn't mean we need to be arrested. It doesn't mean that we even need to be seen or heard or you need to document it on Facebook. But what you do need to do is make sure that you are heard and you sing in unison with so many that have come before us. I'm going to add one more onto that. I honored a man that I actually literally had no idea existed, aside from maybe in some sort of feigned moment or mention in some class some years ago that I probably was half asleep in. It wasn't until I met some amazing people on my journey that were in Memphis and said, you got to come to Memphis. I'm like, I have no reason to come to Memphis. And they said, we'll give you a reason. In a moment of brutal honesty, I made $12 the whole week. I was plus 12. Car's expensive, food's expensive. The hotels are a little iffy. But I did stay in an Airbnb. Nice couple. They couldn't convert me. And then I made a mistake. I thought I was actually getting on a flight on Sunday afternoon. And it was really actually the following day. Or I thought it was the morning and it was the afternoon. And I'm like, I have this entire day to burn. I didn't book clients. I didn't do whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to that barbecue place because, this part right here, Mosley Barbecue, am I right? And then I said, I'm going to go to this place called the Lorraine Motel. And even when I got there, I'm like, it's the National Civil Rights Museum. Okay. All right, I'll check it out. I can say I went. And as I went through this, and I've told this story before, and I don't mind saying it again, I had no idea that is where Martin Luther King was shot. John Lewis was there. John Lewis was part of his party. John Lewis said, John Lewis had every reason to have hate in his heart. Just like many of you may have reason to have hate in your heart. But that's not what he did for the next, 33 years in Congress. Right? If you love the shit out of people, you throw them off guard. If we just start caring for one another, they're not going to care. They're going to ask us for more, and we're going to say no. We will get in trouble for standing up for ourselves. We will get in trouble for standing up for others. That's good trouble. We're not going to turn over the Capitol. We're not going to take a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk. We're going to outclass them from cover to cover. From sea to shining sea. We are going to become the best people we can be, and when they ask us to rebuild this government, we will say never again. John Lewis was an amazing human. I didn't agree with everything politically, but that's what made us both Americans. What I did think, though, and listen, I had no perspective of a man that grew up in the South during basically apartheid, separate but equals. I will never understand what that is like, not as an extroverted state of affairs. But as I went through that museum, I thought, what else do I not know? I actually went to the source documents and started to find out the truth. And that's the kind of good trouble John Lewis told me to get in. Tell the truth. That's good trouble these days. I'm going to give you guys the heart tap to remind you to love and care for one another. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do a little shuffle up and heal. I've also got a little bit of a surprise later on this week. Oh, who could it be? Who could it be? Oh, yeah, Penny and I are going to have some time together this week. We had a chance to get caught up at the end of last week, and she's just like, Brandon, the hell is going on over there? I thought all of you had guns. Do something. Do something. God, our behind-the-scenes stuff is hysterical. It really is. But I want to give you guys a heart taps and let you know, don't give up. Don't give in. The stock market's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to get manipulated. It has nothing to do with any of us. Be smart. Let it hit high. Take the money out. Find something you want to do with it. Live. Because they're just going to try and take it away anyways. While you still have control, do the best you can for as long as you can. Heart taps to all you guys. And remember to keep going. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. And thanks again for tuning in and making everything great. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Help me grow this channel. I'm really going to start to push this to try and get to a higher number here. I want to get it back up over 15,000, and if I can, hit 20,000. I am that far away from hitting the coveted silver YouTube award. So I want to make sure I get that for number of views and all that other good stuff. So help me along, share with your friends. Keep going, guys.